All right. Just a second. All right. I think we're in. Can you hear me?
Hello.
How's it going?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm just trying to get the technical difficulties out the way.
I feel like every Zoom call meeting I start is like begins with technical difficulties, so I feel you.
Right.
Yeah.
Um, Trying to say you're not in, but you're in. So let me
Yeah.
see.
No, I'm definitely here.
All right. There we go. So how's it going today?
Not too bad. Definitely can't complain. How about you?
I'm doing good. I just feel like I was up all night accomplishing a bunch of different other tasks, but I'm glad they're out the way because I was trying to actually to for those of you who don't know, I spent maybe the entire day yesterday dissecting the video that you sent me a few days ago, and we have a lot to talk about. So, for those of you who don't know, we're getting ready to talk about human design and Jinkies, and you are a master at it. I know that you are getting ready to start preaching this or teaching this to the collective, and I feel that. And I am true. I want to just express before the interview goes along, I am truly grateful for the entire human design breakdown you did of me. It's you spent about an hour and a half just dissecting my human design and the gene keys. And I'm now human design is one of those things that I was looking into last year, but I had other tasks such as my book. And I want to say my book was written exactly how you said my human design was. Where
I
my
love
book
it.
written in a tale of my story of how I listened to the universe and how the different things played out for me, how I connect to my higher self. And when you were talking about my human design, I was like, wow, I unintentionally wrote my book just based off of my human design and not realizing that. And that's what I want to talk about with human design for the collective. So everyone can realize that if you follow your human design and what you're designed to do, you will naturally have success without even realizing it. And it's flow in a way, flowing with the universe, flowing what you're intended to do. So without further ado, I'm gonna let you have the floor.
Well, thank you so much. I'm so glad that the reading was well received, and I think that that's like a good place to start with this conversation. Is that like this is just our design, like this is just the way that we are, and I've done dozens of readings, and without fail, the feedback is exactly what you just delivered. Like we are unconsciously living these patterns without realizing it. And I love these systems so much because it helps us to normalize the things like that maybe seem like our biggest struggle. Like for you as the double martyr, right? Like you're the 6'3", that is like one of the messiest, most chaotic profiles, right? Because you just live by making mistakes, right? And the way that we've been indoctrinated into our society is that mistakes are a bad thing. You have to like plan and like succeed, and your success is like this linear path, right? But for people with that profile specifically, because you've got it twice, right? Like the 6 is like the 3, so you just can't have a linear progress. Like it has to go like a little forward, a little backwards, like around and around sometimes. And like it just, I think it just really normalizes that understanding that in about your design specifically. So I love that your book was written that way. And even just like there's so much in your chart about being like a creative leader and like creating for the sake of creating and like putting yourself out there in the way that you already have. So I'm just so pleased to be able to connect you with this information and help like reinforce what you're already doing.
Yeah, I that's why I said when you sent me a message, because I had this goal within this year of connecting people to their highest self and changing the world that way. Because in order to change the world, you must first understand and overstand yourself first before you can project that elsewhere. And I believe what the collective needs is to have a better understanding of themselves, because that is how you connect to your highest self. And understanding myself, I know I relate to people more as being that double martyr where I'm supposed to lead by example. And I noticed that you mentioned a lot that your chart is very similar to mine. If for those of you who don't know, I'm also autistic. I have high functioning
Yes.
autism, and I like you. We just take up different subjects and we just absorb it really quick. Like
Yeah.
last night, my first time designing my website, and I just did it. Took a few hours, but I was like, this is what needs to be done. And I did it. And I looked up a few YouTube videos, and but that's just naturally how I was. And you're right, where you said we struggle in school, and it's not because we think we're better than people. It's because we have the information here, or to go down even more rabbit holes. Like I was the one who, like you called, when it came to religion, or if it came to different subjects in schools, I was always the one to question, but why? Like I don't see the full picture here, or I'm not feeling like I have that gift of discernment. And when I feel something, I feel it here if it's really resonating with me. So I that's why I really want to compliment your human design profile breakdown of me, because I was feeling it here. So when I feel it there, that's when I know it resonates. But for me, certain things throughout school, I didn't feel it here. And that's why I know that we do have a lot of information that where we create our own tribe, where we flock to people who are very like-minded and they're into the same things, or we just want to share this knowledge. And I'm glad that I was able to build a tribe over social media, and that's where you came along. And I feel as if that, with that being said, we're both being pushed to help the collective with our natural gifts. That because you're definitely, can't stress this enough, you are definitely ready to share your knowledge and helping the collective with everything you broke down to me. And I find it interesting that you said in 2020, that is the year that you decided to take up human design, right? Like what was happening in your life where you were just like, I want to look in and learn human design?
Okay. That's a great question. There's a few things that I want to touch on about what you just said as well. So we'll kind of put a pin in the whole autism, extrasensory, like education, because there's definitely a lot of things to say on that point. But what I'm going to say actually to answer this specific question, we'll kind of tie into that as well. So in 2020, it's really interesting. I just love how everything unravels the way that it's meant to, and like how we can't really understand it when we're in it. We just have to surrender and allow it to be. Because leading up to 2020, like my earlier years, so I'm a little bit older than you. I'm 40, and like my 20s and 30s were full of like chaos. Like, so I was undiagnosed autistic. I was using a whole bunch of different substances to mitigate either being overstimulated or understimulated. I'm also ADHD, so I'm like odd HD technically. So I'm constantly overstimulated or understimulated. So I'm like perceiving so much of my environment, right? Like that very zoomed out perspective. That's autism, right? Like we're like sensitive to sensory input because we're perceiving things on like a way bigger scale and like on way more levels than somebody who is like a neurotypical type of human. So there's that. But then also being ADHD, I'm like sensory seeking. So I'm like needing more sensory. So I was constantly in this like place of like reaching outside of myself, having that external locus of control, right? Like feeling like I need things outside of myself to feel good, and then being like, oh, it's too many things, right? So I was like using alcohol, like cannabis, like harder drugs, and then like people, like going out, like all of that kind of stuff. So my life was very chaotic prior to 2020. Around like 2017 or so, I kind of hit a rock bottom with the addictions. It's not hard. It's not easy to like manage that kind of substance use and like have a life. But I'm also a mom too. So I have a 14-year-old daughter. And so I was like half the time she's at her dad. So I was like having this like chaotic, like addicted, crazy life. And then like I'd be like a mom when I had her. So it just got to be too much. And like it's a really long story, but the point is I hit a kind of rock bottom with that. White knuckled sobriety, right? I was like, I can't be drinking, can't be doing these drugs. And like that is when I found spirituality. Like as soon as I stopped like numbing myself and being in this like completely altered psychotropic state, I started having downloads, right? And like I didn't understand what they were. Uh, and I didn't really trust them, but it led me down this path of looking into shadow work, like Joe Dispenza, like that kind of stuff is like how I got into spirituality. Worked with some coaches, like started to understand feelings and all of that, like because I'm a non-emotional being. So like you're an emotional manifesting generator and I'm a sacral manifesting generator, so I don't have any definition in my solar plexus. It took me a long time to have feelings because I'm so detached and like cold in a lot of ways just by nature, right? Like really kind of like reptilian almost in my nature of like just being like calm, cool, and collected all of the time. So through that process, I had to quit the job I was working. I was working in fitness. I was a personal trainer and a gym manager for like 10 years. So I realized the fitness industry was just like totally superficial. Couldn't do it because I was like learning to love myself as I was. And so that was like years leading up to 2020. So by the time the like the whole COVID thing happened and the lockdowns, I was prior to that working in like a restaurant. I was doing sales for a kombucha company. And I had decided that I couldn't make a living really working these like smaller jobs. So I was going to come back to coaching in a like spiritual mentorship kind of way. And then the lockdowns happened and I couldn't like do anything. Right. So it was actually a blessing for me. Like, I know it was a very difficult time for a lot of people with all of the limitations and all of that stuff that went along with all of that. But it was literally a blessing for me because the Canadian government gave us their CERB, right? So I was getting like $2,000 a month, and I didn't have to work. Like before that, I was working like 3 jobs, right? So I didn't have to work. I was getting money, and I had already conquered the addictions at that point. So like, and I always say this so many times, like if I hadn't, like if things hadn't played out the way that they would, I'm not sure I would even be here, to be honest with you. Like if COVID had happened when I was still drinking and doing drugs, like who knows what would have happened. But instead of doing that with my time, I basically hyper fixated on spirituality. So I learned, that's how I learned about human design. Somebody that I was following, actually it was a woman that I had met at a gym that I was working at, started talking about how she uses human design with her clients. And I was like, what's this? And like started doing my research thing, right? Because one of the things about being a manifesting generator and then also being autistic is that we have a high capacity for a lot of different things, right? Like we're often polymaths, so we can like, you can build your website and you can create content and you can, do other things. Like I'm still doing like 3 or 4 different jobs, and I need that and I like that. So yeah, that's how I discovered it. And then I basically because it was like a year. I feel like I can't, that time period is a little blurry because it was so odd, but like there was a long time where there was no work. There was just like being at home. So I would structure my time. I would like spend the morning consuming information. I'm a one line. So like I literally I have like 6 or 7 like books full of notes of things like this. Like anytime I read something, I make my own notes on it. So that's basically how I learned it. And then I like worked with some coaches. I took some courses, and then I started reading charts. So like I started with my own to understand myself, and then I was like, holy crap! Like this is it's so accurate, and it made such a difference. Even just that first piece of understanding the generator and manifesting generator strategy is to respond, right? And not, we don't have to initiate so much. I was like, holy heck, no wonder I've been so frustrated. Like I'm trying to like do so much when I just need to respond to what is. So I started reading people's charts, and like people close to me, anybody who was interested, started offering. I did the first like spiritual course that I offered was an intuitive weight loss course. I called it Skinny Witch. And it was like combining my background in fitness and weight loss with like spiritual principles. And so I did human design readings for everybody in the course. I taught lectures on it. And then it's been like a very core tenet of all the work that I've done since then. So does that answer your question?
It's because I have more to build on that, but I want to start off with, because I'm getting into human design as well, because I want to start teaching it and the best way to do it, I see, is learning yourself first, and then
Yes.
work your way to your outer circles and starting to look at their profile, how they relate to you, like start with a significant other. And now you said 2020, that is the year that a lot of people uh just had this grand awakening. And with my life, kind of similar, where it's that fuck around and find out. And it's also, I'm learning by experience. So prior to 2020, my life was in a form of a chaos, so to say. And then I discovered spirituality, where somebody who I encountered in my life, she introduced me to Joe Dispenza. And
That's
I was
so
like,
funny.
wow, I naturally do this. Like I didn't realize this was what I was doing, but it's like he put it in words, like, this is what you're doing. I was like, oh, and then I just started building upon that and just combining all the knowledge that I've had collected over the years, and everything I say is playing its part because it's happening for its reason. I say my career in the fire department is what actually was the catalyst to my spiritual awakening, because I discovered a woman who had a near-death experience, and she opened my eyes to a different perspective, and it just kept building from there. So my thing is, like, if for the people who are watching, if you were to explain human design for someone who you just met, what would you say to them? What is human design?
All right. So, human design is a comprehensive system that combines a number of different, like, metaphysical mystery school philosophies to create a blueprint for you to understand where you are within the collective synarchy. So, synarchy may need some definition. It's a concept that's similar to the idea of hierarchy. So, our society is currently a hierarchy, right? Where like some people are more valuable than others. In the synarchy, everybody is different. Everybody plays a very unique role, but we're all equally valuable, right? Now, equal doesn't mean this exact same, right? People get kind of hung up on that. It's like, no, we're not all the same. We're all meant to be completely different. We're like individual snowflakes, right? Or like the analogy I like to use is the idea of us all being unique notes in a symphony, right? Like we're meant to play a very unique note that is not like anybody else's. The timing is different, the pitch is different, and it maybe sounds weird on its own, but when you play that unique note, it like connects the whole symphony, right? Whereas our current society, or the way that we've been indoctrinated into being, is like like a grade 1 class all playing the recorder, right? I don't know if you have any experience with young children learning the recorder in
Yeah,
school.
I played
Horrific
it.
instrument, like it's terrible. Like it's just the worst, right? So it's like ABCs, right? Like that's how we're taught. It's like be like everybody else, right? And this is why we're so messed up, right? Because we're all playing a role that is not actually designed for us. And then there's a very harsh incongruence, right? Because it takes a lot of energy to pretend to be something that you're not. So you've got this, it's like everybody's basically masking, even neurotypicals, right? They just aren't aware that they're doing it. So human design, and then also the gene keys. So the gene keys is another system that builds on human design, give you the blueprint to understand your unique way of being in the world. Like human design is the way of being. It's more of like the mechanics of how to drive your meat robot kind of idea. And so by like adhering, like understanding your energy type, your profile, and then your authority, your decision-making authority. Those are the three things I would start with for people who are brand new to it. And even honestly, just adhering to those things is going to make a huge difference in your life. You can, there's so much more to it. Like there's so many layers. And for somebody like me, who is a one line, so the one line is all about seeking information. Those of us with that in our profile find comfort and security in knowing, right? That's why I take notes on everything, is because it brings me comfort. I'm also like a 5 line though too. So the 5 line is the heretic. So this means that I'm here to be a change maker. I'm here to be 2 steps ahead of the collective. I literally cannot be inside the box. Like I'm like, what is that box? I'm like not gonna do that because I'm supposed to think differently, which gave me like a lot of problems when I was younger. But now it's a gift. So
You know what's funny, when it would click yesterday where you said we had an open mind, both you and I, on our design profile, which is like, it really clicked where I was like, huh, no wonder I just don't like. I feel like if you look at so many people's human design profiles and you see that the mind is filled in, those are the kind of people, not knocking them, but they're the ones who just, they listen to what they're told and they just believe it, as opposed to questioning, well, what if this, or what if that, like what if the world is this, like, it's just different perspectives that we have as someone who has that space empty, where I do intuitively go with my gut before listening to my mind, which has helped save my life at work. It saves me in so many different situations, or even with tests where it's like, if I listen to this, believe it or not, I don't do as well. But when I listen to this mind, that's when I do the best. Now, you made a brilliant analogy with the flashlight, which I would love for you to cover for the profile aspect of it.
yes, so that has to, the flashlight is the energy type. So we can get the profiles we can get into after that if you want, but the energy types is the first category. So they're as I mentioned, it's a very layered system and it goes from broad to way more specific as you go. So the flashlight analogy has to do with the 4 different energy types in human design, which are how the collective is divided. So about 10% of the population are what are known as manifestors. So they are the switch in the flashlight analogy. So they have the ability to initiate. They're the ones who have the creative inspiration, and they're here to be the kings, the queens, the leaders, those who are able to drive the collective with this direct insight. They are an energy type, so they create their own energy, but they have a very guarded kind of aura. So they're like, when a manifestor walks into the room, you can feel them, but it's usually triggering to people because they're meant to be, right? Like they're not to be part of the collective. They're meant to drive us, right? So that's the switch. And their strategy is to inform. Okay, so they have to tell us, they can't just go around doing what they want to do because their energy is so powerful and triggering, they don't usually get a favorable response. Like nobody really likes being told what to do, right? Like we all want autonomy. So when a manifestor doesn't inform and they just act, they're like scared or like on the offensive, right? So they have to inform, and if they don't, they become angry. Like that's their not self. Peace is their like indicator of being in alignment. So that's the manifestors. The next part of the flashlight is the batteries. So there's 2 different subsections of the battery category. And this is the generators. So there's generators and manifesting generators. Now, we've already mentioned that you and I are both manifesting generators. It's about 50-50, like a little bit more of the collective are manifesting generators than standard generators. And the differentiation is that we have just a titch of that manifesting energy. So we do have some boss energy. We do have the ability to initiate. We can be leaders. We can get that creative insight and direct. However, it is a bit more of a fuck around and find out kind of vibe, right? Like we're sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So as a manifesting generator, we have to release ourselves from like committing to things that just don't work, right? And allowing ourselves to change our minds. Whereas generators tend to be more of like a one, I don't say one trick pony. It sounds kind of like a derogatory term, but it's like they tend to have like one kind of interest, right? And it's like to serve themselves. Both categories of batteries are here to power the collective, right? So manifesting generators and generators are here to know ourselves, right? So even to kind of go back to what some of the things you mentioned earlier about like how we create change in the collective is by focusing on ourselves. Like it's inside out and backwards that you're supposed to care about other people more than you care about yourself. Because in doing that, you're actually doing yourself a disservice. So as batteries, generators, we're meant to give ourselves our own satisfaction. And that is our alignment theme, right? When we're satisfied, we radiate that satisfied energy into the collective and power everybody. So generators are also energy types, and our auras are very expansive, right? So when a manifesting generator or a generator walk into the room, you feel it, right? And this is why like our lives were chaotic before we learn to focus our energy and become peaceful, right? Because when your life is chaotic and you're feeling that, you're creating chaos around you, right? Like my life was a literal train wreck because I was radiating frustration, right? That's the not self theme of the generators. So we're radiating frustration. And this is, it's like 66% of the population is either a manifesting generator or a generator. So this is a big part of why society is in the state that it is right now, is because most people are not aware of this. They're poisoned, they're fear-mongered, and they're radiating that frustration to fuel the collective, right? So the next category, moving on, so we've got the manifestors as the switch, the manifesting generators, and the generators as the batteries, radiating either satisfaction or frustration. And then we've got the light bulb in the flashlight analogy. So the light bulb are known as projectors. They are a non-energy type. So they don't create their own energy. This is not to say that they don't have definition in energy centers. Like there's different categories of projectors actually. But they are the ones who are meant to siphon the energy off of the generators and focus it. So they are the best consultants, the best guides, teachers, therapists, because they can, like, whatever they look at, they see right to the core, right? They they have a knack for seeing like the issues that other people can't, right? And so, oh, I forgot to say too. So the strategy for the generators and the manifesting generators is to respond. And I think I mentioned that already in our conversation, but we have to respond. We have to wait for the switch to go on in order to turn on, right? Like you don't want a battery just turning on by itself, right? So the strategy for the projectors, because they have such a clear laser vision, they must wait for invitation in order to provide the insight. Because if you think about it, even to tie in this flashlight analogy, like if you're just shining a light somewhere without being asked, like you might see something that you don't want to see, like somebody's going to be upset. And if they are not acting in alignment with that strategy, they'll be feeling bitter. That's the not self theme of a projector. Projectors also have a really hard time in our society because since they are not an energetic type, they don't create their own energy. Like you and I are like workhorses. We can get it done. Like we can grind through, like we can do a lot of different things. We've got a lot of energy that's reliable and dependable. But projectors get gassed like really easy. They need to rest more. Like a projector should only really be working like 4 hours a day, right? Which is really hard for them because we've all been indoctrinated into being like manifestors or manifesting generators, right? Like we're taught like just go, like initiate, like do all the time, right? But if a projector does that, they get so out of whack. Actually, most of my mentorship clients, and I facilitate a spiritual school of the arts in the city I live in, and most of the women that have like come to our group are projectors because they're so like they're the ones that get burnt out. They're also usually the most psychic because they, even though all of us are intuitive and we all have downloads and we all have the ability to tap into that, they're so open and spacey, like they can really tune into that energy a lot more. And they're about 20-21% of the population. And then the last category, very rare, only 1% of the population are known as reflectors. So in the flashlight analogy, they're like that little mirror behind the light bulb, right? So they literally, as their name would make you think, they reflect whatever environment that they're in. So they have no definition in their chart. So none, when you look at their design, everything's white. They have no channels, right? Because they don't have any gates active in their chart. And they don't have a decision-making authority because they don't have any internal definition. So they're literally a different person every day based on the lunar cycle. So when it comes to making a decision, they have to track how they feel at various stages of the moon and then create trends based on that. It's a very challenging role to have. And they're basically here to, like, it's very important for them to find their tribe, right? Because since they magnify whatever energy they're around, they need to be around people who are in alignment. Otherwise, they absorb and magnify whatever energy is around them. And they're just here to like kind of amp us all up, right? So I've been very blessed in knowing 2 reflectors so far. One of them is a one-on-one client of mine right now. And it's really interesting working with somebody like that because they're so different than everybody and they're so special, and they really just need to be free to explore. Like their alignment sign is surprise, right? And if they're out of alignment, they're disappointed. So that's the energy types.
Well, going back to your reflector, may I ask what is their profession? Because I am curious to like what is the typical profession for a reflector? I'm thinking of like a hype man, but what is
That's a good question. So my one-on-one client that I have currently was working in real estate. Like she was a real estate investor, and she ended up having like a spontaneous awakening and like a breakdown as a result of being in that like hustle culture. And it was like a very abrupt awakening for her. And she was basically like, I can't do this anymore. So now what she's about, because she was working in real estate, she created a nice little financial like nest egg for herself. So we're basically exploring her interests. So she is looking at becoming like an organizer for people, like a consultant. She is an artist, and she does like intuitive pour painting classes. So essentially, like I don't think there is like an ideal profession. I think there's more nuance to it. Like it depends on their interests and maybe their astrology as well, right? Like where their midheaven is, and these sorts of things, because they're meant to follow their interests, right? And just be free to kind of float around. Like they're meant to just not be tied down and just kind of float around and sample things. That's another theme of the reflector, sampling. So anything that would allow them to sample different environments.
so going back to the projector, because I'm gonna do my girlfriend's chart when I'm after this conversation, because it just really hit me in the head that I'm 100% sure that she is a projector. She is a Montessori teacher, and she when she's off work, she's great. But when she's consumed by so much energy and working for the typical 9 to 5, oh, it just weighs her down. Like where she gets home and she's just stressed, just wants to decompress. But she's also very intuitive and she feels every form of energy. So it's very empathic. And when I heard projector, like I'm thinking about how she came into my life where it was really like chaotic, And then she pointed out my flaws and how I was prior to meeting her, where I said she was the awakened masculine energy, because I she found me when I was in a wounded feminine energy state of my life, and she came in to like project, and it's just like ego was just like, no, I don't want to hear this. That's not true. But when I let the kind of put it down and gave it some humble pie, I was like, holy cow, you are right. This was me, and this was just my path. And she, like, I told her about my reading yesterday, and she was just like, well, why is it that you had to go through that, all those experiences? Like, because I wasn't the best towards women in the beginning. Like, and that's just what I explained to her, is just that was just part of my path. I just had to experience the emotions of life, and how everything happened for a reason. And another thing that hit me with when you were talking about this, as my profile goes, I'm a firefighter EMT, and literally a year ago today, actually, I was studying for the lieutenant's test, and I didn't do so well to become a fire lieutenant. But I reflected on that, because that failure was what allowed me to write my book and focus my energy elsewhere to grow my brand. And also, I realized that I'm meant to experience experiences, because if I was a fire lieutenant, not to say I'm not a good leader, but if I was a fire lieutenant, I will be stuck in a fire station. I won't have the opportunity to be out and about as a firefighter EMT, going around having these experiences, because a lot of my experiences came from going about and experiencing life through work. And that was literally the catalyst of my growth, is just being out and experiencing life vicariously through other people. So I just had that like profound like epiphany moment. I was like, aha, this makes sense. And this is why human design is so exciting, because when you realize you are following the natural design of your meat suit, you can have success. And when we see in our design, where I love the breakdown where you had the different parts of the body, and you talked about how, for example, um the heart, right, where you said the question to ask, is it enough? Who am I trying to prove to? I don't have anything to prove to anybody. I felt that, because it's just like I feel like I was just accomplishing all this stuff, and I'm just like, who am I trying to prove this to? No one. Like, I have no. I love where I'm at right now, so it's like, why do I feel the need to impress anyone? Like, who am I trying to impress? Who am I trying to prove myself to? So it's just like, when you're content, you feel that, and that's how you are aligned with your design. And I feel energy, and I feel that now you are definitely aligned to what is meant for you. Like, as you talk about your clients, and you do all this stuff for others, and helping people is what you are naturally gifted at doing. Now, going back to astrology, for those who don't know astrology, how does human design tie into astrology?
Okay, good question. So, and before I get into that, I wanted to say too, to reinforce everything that you just said, like this again is why I love this stuff so much, right? Like understanding and normalizing the things about ourselves that we thought were problematic, right? Like having this life, like we're taught to be a certain way, be like everybody else, fit in, go to school, get a job, succeed at the job, like get married, have kids, consume, right? Like, and what we're not actually meant to be that way, right? Like, and for you specific, we're all meant to follow our own path and allow things to unravel, right? And like even my own path, like looking back, like there's so many parts of this that like could have been seen as like total failures and like tragedies and horrible things that have happened to me over the last like my whole life basically. But like everything, we'll just allow it to unfold. We end up being where we're meant to be, like where we're in that state of flow, right? So I just love it so much. So I'm so glad that the pieces are like coming together for you with this. And I really appreciate the reflection as far as me and like where I'm going. I've been feeling that energy for a while as well, but it's always nice to have it kind of reflected externally as well. So thank you.
I feel it.
As for astrology, so human design is based on a number, let's like an amalgamation of a number of different metaphysical traditions, right? So there's the I Ching, which is like the Chinese hexagrams of like enlightenment, essentially. And then there is the chakras, right? There's the 7 chakras, but there's 9 in human design. And then there's all the astrology. So the astrology plays in now this is where it gets a little bit deeper. And I personally am like astrology is a relatively newer interest for me. So I've been learning about it for about 6 months or so, like more in depth. But basically, astrology, the way that I understand it, is a diagram or like charting of the natural rhythm of the universe, right? Like the expansion and contraction. Like astrology is like a bunch of different patterns playing over and over and overlapping in this very intricate kind of web, right? And or actually kind of how I see it is more like I don't know if you ever had one of those toys that was like a pegboard with like little cogs on it, like that you like put on, and one of them has a handle and you have to like put, you know what I mean? You like turn it down here and it makes it turn up here. Like that's kind of how I understand it. So human design lays like on top of astrology in that like you need your birth information to understand where your soul entered the neutrino stream. Like that's what the neutrino stream is the word that human design uses for like the astrological planets and patterns essentially. So depending on when your soul like entered the portal, like went through the portal, entered the neutrino stream, it designates you as playing a specific role in the patterns that are playing out. So that's how we're able to tell like your energy type and profile and all of that. And then so what I've been doing with the readings I've been doing and like with the one-on-one work and the group work that I do is again I learned by doing these things and looking at different charts, right? So when I know human design and gene keys pretty well, so then I look at the astrology and I can see how it makes sense, right? Like for you, your big 3, like your Virgo sun and Cancer moon and Cancer rising, right? So like having that, like the Virgo, like the mutable earth energy, like that gives you mutable earth is like flexible energy to like do, right? So like that makes sense that you're a manifesting generator. There was also something, I can't remember which channel it was. One of the channels in your human design had to do with like health, right? And like taking care of your body and making yourself feel good through self-care.
That was being ruled by I think it was it Sagittarius, I believe, or where it's like I have to get my hair, which is true. I do, like I feel better when I take care of my body and stuff naturally aligns when I got my hair done. Or I had this other epiphany when I started working out, going to the gym. I put on 20 pounds of muscle, and I ended up getting a modeling contract out of nowhere just by taking care of myself.
Yes.
And it's just like I always went based off of Deion Sanders' philosophy. If you play good, they pay. If you look good, you feel good. You feel good, you play good. You play good, they pay good. So it's just like that me, where it's like I have not to sound in like vain, but it's just like I feel better when I look good. I function my best when I look good. My best videos go out when I look good. So it's just like it sounds vain, but it's just like that's my design, you know? Like I need to function this way. Like I have to have all of this stuff done for me to naturally align to that these serendipitous moments, like you said.
Yes.
And I can't find what is ruling that. I think
I like have the notes here that I made. I feel like it was the channel, like there was a channel going from your identity center to
yes, it was a gate.
the identity to the throat, maybe. My handwriting is so terrible, and I'm like, I can't. Like, where was that? But there was something. There was a channel, and I'm pretty sure it was coming from the identity center because it's like who you are, right? Like it's a big part of who you are to feel good. And I want to also just highlight there that piece, the piece again, about like, oh, it maybe sounds vain, but that's because that's the way we've been brainwashed into thinking that like taking care of ourselves and feeling good about ourselves is a bad thing. Like, so what if you are vain? Like, why is that a bad thing? Like, it's a good thing to take care of yourself. And if it makes you feel good, it's not like you think that you're better than other people, right?
Right.
Like that's the interpretation that we've been given. And like for me, like I have like a very high IQ, and my gift is having this very zoomed out perspective and pattern recognition, right? So like I can see things that other people can't. And when I point these things out, people are like, "Oh, you think you're better than me because you're so smart." I'm like, "I'm just smart." Like it doesn't mean that I'm better than you. It's just who I am, right? And when we own those things and we see them as not problematic, we see them as a gift, right? We're able to embrace that. And the whole point, especially for us as generators, is to feel good, right? Because whatever we're feeling is what other people feel. So like, especially when you're like you mentioned, you know, when you've got your hair done and you've gone to the gym and like you're feeling good, and then you create a piece of content, that content performs better because the people consuming it feel how you're feeling, right? When we're creating from a place of feeling like I have to, or like less than, or like worried about what other people are going to think, that is what people feel when they consume it. So it's not a bad thing. Like that's who you are. You're meant to own that.
Oh yeah, like right, and then going with the natural flow of things because like I know I have a YouTube video that I was gonna do, but like I was so boggled down by this human design where I want to just focus on this right now. So it's just like I know I got a YouTube video and I'm like I gotta have it down this date, but I'm just flowing with what I feel in the moment. And right now is just like something saying just learn more about human design and like take as much of it in, absorb it. Because it was a lot to take in. Like I
Yeah.
was for example, the part I meant to get to this, but since we're on kind of on the topic, or you help people with this as far as gut health, which is very important. And just to get in a deep rabbit hole, I do believe that we are being poisoned. Like our microbiome is control, like it controls our emotions, and it's why people have this urge to continue to consume more is because they put stuff in these products and they trigger chemicals within our to our other brains that tell us you need to consume this, keep on consuming this poison, and it's contributing to the mental health problems and all this different stuff that we have. Like I did a video on a little skit on red 40 and how like that is the poison that we've been consuming as kids, and we're tricked into believing that, oh, we need to eat this because you know it's on medicine or it's on this, it's on our food. And they put these products on kids levels and they make them all colorful and shiny so they can consume it and get indoctrinated at a young age into consuming bad stuff. So it's just interesting how, like you said, reflecting back on the you, when you cut out certain stuff in your life, that's when your gift started to unlock. So you stopped consuming the poisons, the radiation. That's when you started to become more clairvoyant. Your senses started to open. And that's why I believe personally that they poison us with these substances because they want us to stay dormant in this reptilian like state where we don't question, we just go with the flow, and we just think that's norm. So my thing is, it's just like, how can we follow our diet based off of our human design?
Great question. Okay, and I just want to also kind of riff briefly on what you just said because I, as you know, fully believe all of that. And like to add to it, like we've been there's like we're poisoned in like a multitude of ways. Like it comes at us in like so many different, like the food that we're eating, the water that we're drinking, the products that we're using, the things like our skin products, our hair, like the cleaning products, the air, the water, like everything, right? And it is done intentionally to us in order to keep us in a dampened state, right? Like a contracted state, because when we're poisoned, it creates like the physical body reacts with the mind, right? Like when your body is radiating at a, actually, maybe it is actually radiating, right? Like when it's vibrating at a frequency of being poisoned, your body is sending signals to your brain that something is wrong and you need to be looking outside of yourself for threats, right? So the gut, like the three brains, the brain, the heart, and the gut signals the brain to look for something that's wrong. And we literally cannot access any sort of clairvoyance, any sort of like intuition, anything beyond the physical realm in that state. And that is where most of the population is residing. And then our institutions, right? Like the education system teaches us to consume information outside of ourselves and regurgitate it, right? Like there's no critical thinking, there's no looking outside the box. It's literally looking outside of yourself for information, and then like looking outside of yourself for being rewarded, right? Like somebody else is judging you or marking you on how you're regurgitating information. So everything is based on that external locus of control. And so the first step in being able to access anything beyond the 3D realm is by purifying your body. Like you cannot be poisoned to that degree and be able to access anything beyond your brain. So that is like, doesn't matter your anything to do with your chart, like that is ubiquitous for all human beings, is like purify the body in order to be able to access this. But there is specific information contained within your human design chart about how to consume as well, right? So this is what you were wanting to know, is like there's 6 different digestion types. That's called the determination. So the software that I use to do the readings is called Genetic Matrix. I'm not sure if they have a free version. Like I pay a small monthly fee to have a subscription to it. But it's where I got the information on the reading that I did for you. And so it gives, not all human design programs will give you the detailed determination information. But there's 6 different types, and some of them are more primitive. So you have a more like primitive digestive system. I believe it was the consecutive, right? We're like eating like one ingredient at a time, right? Like eating one or having one type of information at a time to consume in that way. And then there's also people, like the different environments, like whether you want to be in an environment with a lot of sound information or like a more quiet environment. Some people do better eating in the dark versus eating in the light. Some people like more hot food or cold food. And then the other category is having like a very wide variety of food, or having like a very like closed type of digestion. All of them are based on polarity, right? Like, so they're for whatever one, there's always an opposite category as well.
So, and I know I'm definitely one of those people that I love my food hot. Like I prefer it hot. I'm pretty sure that's in my chart. And you're right about how I consume not just food, but information. Like, even though I can wear many hats, so to say, when I consume something, I have to consume just that at a time. Like, where it's just, whether it be food or it's information. Like, if I'm learning about something, I don't want to learn about something else. That's why school never really caught. When I went to college, I broke, because it's so weird how I feel like I naturally just live my human design like unintentionally, because I paid for my own schooling, I paid for my own classes. I can only afford one class at a time. So I put myself through junior college, and I paid for a class here and a class there. And I may have taken maybe per semester. It took me a lot longer to finish, of course, this route, but it's how I consumed it, where I had to take a course for a semester. I might have taken 3 courses, like, and I focused on this course this day, this course this day, that course this day. And I didn't when I loaded myself up with courses because I wanted to finish college the traditional way, it was a setup for failure. Historically, I've done worse when I loaded myself up with classes, but I done better when I just focused on, let's just take a sociology course. And I enjoyed it that way, where it's just like I was able to focus, build my schedule around it, work schedule. And it's just like, remember going back, who do I have to prove something to? Like, why am I pushing this deadline? Like, I need to finish college by this, when it was just like, how about I just learn a class and just absorb the information and you retain it better? So it's just like, I, using that analogy, it's like, wow, that's how I digest food better. Like, if I just consume a bunch of stuff like everybody else, I'm going to have digestive issues. And us Virgos, we are naturally ruled by our gut, and we
Uh,
have gut problems. So it's just like, if I follow my human design, I can eliminate those gut problems. And you mentioned cancer. I think that was more in the gene keys, like where not cancer as in Virgo cancer, but cancer. And I believe that cancer is a buildup of dead, stagnant energy. And that's where my girlfriend, she does Reiki healing, but where we have within our etheric bodies these viruses, or these things that penetrate our etheric bodies, and they stay and linger there, and they trigger down to our physical body. So cancer being one of them, where if we eliminate that dead stagnant energy within us, whether that be through food or just energy that's penetrating us in general, we can beat cancer. And everyone's like, when I tell that to people, they're like, you chemo beats cancer. Like, that's what we've been indoctrinated into thinking. Like, that's the poison that they want to continue to put in you. But cancer, people who beat cancer, it's mental,
mhm.
where they don't just sit there and think, I'm going to die because I have cancer. Like, there's a guy, gosh, I met him at the one of these events that I go to, the Walter Russell event in Waynesboro, Virginia. I highly recommend. Yeah, I feel like you would enjoy it as well. But he was a guy who walked from Florida to New York, and he was diagnosed with cancer. And what he said is, I just lived with it. Doctors told me I was going to die, but I live with my cancer. We are one. But it's just, I feel like when you approach things with that mindset, you can conquer anything, cancer being one of them, because cancer is a form of dead, stagnant energy. And I believe that if we follow our human design, we eat right, we can get rid of that dead, stagnant energy, or the excess weight that a lot of us put on. Like right now, I feel like I'm actually in a bit of struggle with balance within myself, where I don't eat enough because I can get too focused on um other tasks, where it's just like eating is just like, I don't care to eat. Where my mind is so focused on accomplishing different things, where I know for a fact that that is probably where I'm still messing up, because that 20 pounds of muscle that I had, I don't have it no more, because eating, I had to consume over 6,000 calories to put that weight on. And that is not my design. I'm not meant to just, it pushed me to the point where I hated eating. Like, where I just was like, I don't want to consume this much chicken. I don't want to consume all
Mhm.
this food. It was a job, and I don't like feeling like I have a job. Like, I just want to just flow, and that was going against the flow. So now it's like, I eat when I eat, and I do know that sometimes I can just get so focused on other things where I don't even eat. Like, where I'm just like, I want to accomplish this, I want to do this, or I have so many other things. Eating is just limited on my priority. So I know for a fact that is one of my daily things I struggle with. But, you know, diets definitely are something that our human design incorporates. And if we follow them, we would have so much success. Because, and that's what I say about meditation. Meditation is like a diet as well. You meditate, what how you meditate might not be how so and so meditates, where how you eat or how you consume might not be how such and such consumes. So now you have to look, do what works best for you. And I think that's my advice with everyone, is doing what works best with them. So learning human design is a start, everybody. I definitely recommend you all check out your chart. And do you have, so when you were on your journey, what books did you look into to that really like gave you that aha, I get it, I understand it now?
All right. Yeah. So I do. There's so many things on what you just said too that I wanted to just like reinforce and touch on, but I know we're getting kind of close to the end here. But like, yes to all of that, right? Like all of the problems with the body are based on energy not moving through us, right? Like it's about stagnation and holding things within. And if there's one thing for all of us to take away from this is like nothing is permanent, everything's transient, and like everything is constantly moving. Like we're meant to be moving through different phases and changing and um like having experiences and allowing them to move through us, right? We absolutely can cure cancer, and it's more than just like mental, it's emotional, right? Like it's really, and it is kind of like not cancer like the disease, but cancer the sign too, right? Because it's like that's the mutable water, like the seed of emotion. So you absolutely can, and I've seen it. I've had so many examples of that in people that I know curing cancer through their emotions. So I just wanted to reinforce that. But as far as books go, as I mentioned, I'm a one line, and I'm a polymath and I'm autistic. So I literally have like hundreds of books. I read like 12 books at the same time. Um, my digestive type is different than yours. So I'm a more complex digestion. So it's called the high and active, not high like high, but like high as in like a high volume of things, so I can consume a lot of different things at the same time. And I like to be in an environment that is auditorily appeasing to me. So I like to eat out. I like to be, but not like some restaurants are too much because I am autistic. So it has to be like that right vibe. Um, and so I think as far as the topic of human design, a lot of the information, as I mentioned, I got from the Jovian archive, which is like the curator, like the man who channeled human design, Ra Uru Aha. His website is jovianarchive.com, Jovian archive. And again, there's a certain amount that you can get for free on there, but then I did purchase like the extended information. There's so much information on there. But I also have this book that I got at like my local metaphysical shop. It's fairly comprehensive. There's a number of other books on human design as well, but this is the one that I reference. It's got a pretty comprehensive, like it's got the energy types, it's got the profiles, it's got the decision-making authorities, and it's got all of the different information on the different centers in here as well. So if you're interested in human design specifically, I would recommend this book. And then I don't have it close to me to hold up. I think it's over in the other room, but the gene keys as well. So we didn't get into that part of the conversation, but the gene keys was channeled by Richard Rudd, who was a human design teacher. And human design is like the skeleton, and the gene keys is like the muscles and the tendons, like everything that fleshes it out. So understanding your human design helps you with like your strategy and how to make decisions and how to be in the world. And the gene keys connects you with like your purpose and your dharma and like the biggest challenges and how to create stability in your life. So the gene keys definitely is not like, the book is like this thick, like it's like huge. It is not something to be read like cover to cover, and it's also like it's kind of out of reach for some people depending on where their reading comprehension is. But you can read it and like not without the pressure of needing to understand it, right? So like reading it and like bringing it into your being and allowing it to simmer. So those would be the two recommendations I would make as far as specific books that people could check out.
Is there any good videos?
I'm like trying to think about creators. Like really, like I most of the research that I've done was on their Jovian archive. So like that would be the primary reference. I'm like trying to think. The person that I learned human design from doesn't do it anymore. Yeah, I don't have videos, unfortunately. Maybe like I'm gonna start creating content.
That's what I just said, because I really think that you should be the one, because I was able to grasp it because I'm more of a visual learner. Believe it or not, I know I wrote a book and everyone's asking me for an audio book, and I feel so bad because like I haven't done that yet. That is on my to-do list. but I am someone who has to learn through an audio book. Like my reading and comprehension is not the best. But if I listen to it, I retain it better. Or if I watch a video, the information sticks to me years later. So that's why learning your design like is crucial. And really, I think that if you really were to start doing YouTube videos on human design, it would help a lot of people because I'm not gonna lie, that when we got to the Jinkies, I was kind of like, this is I need to really because I already had I dissected the human design portion, but then the Jinkies portion, I was like, all right, I didn't even I just had to listen. I couldn't even take notes. I didn't know where to even begin to take the notes. So I can only imagine how complex the book will be. But I really think that you should be the one to do the YouTube videos because if anyone were to see the human design profile you've done for me, they would have a better understanding of it because it helped me understand it. I was looking into human design, but I know honestly there's not a big it's not as mainstream as all the astrology out there. You know, all these
Mhm.
astrology teachers. It's even that in itself is it's a different market. So human design, I think this is the gold rush right now where a lot of us don't really know. And if you could be the pioneer on YouTube to teach it, I think you will go far. So, with that being said, I don't want to tie you up too much longer. I really enjoyed this conversation. I know what I feel what is meant for you, especially the year of the dragon. We're the year of abundance in 2024. Like, this is what I do genuinely feel is the best path. Like you are ready to share this information with the collective, and you'll bring many clients once you start putting yourself out there on TikTok. Because I don't think your TikTok doesn't have too many human design
Yeah.
aspects of it, right? So,
It's kind of funny you mentioned that even because that so like how I came in like how this circumstance came to be was that I haven't been creating content at all for some time. I got a download to just focus. I also have a residential cleaning business, so I have that, and then like I have employees and all of that. So I've been focusing on that and the in-person events, and I've managed to build a successful mentorship business with just people that I know in person because creating content felt really like sticky and like staticky for me for a long time. However, I did start like we connected through TikTok and I did get like a fairly like I have like 1,000 followers without really trying to do anything. And the reason why I was motivated to offer you a reading was because I haven't been creating content, but people are liking my I do have Gene Keys videos on there, like the Gene Keys and human design, the gates and the keys transit like the astrology. So every few days we change keys, right? So I've created there's a number of videos of me talking about specific gene keys on my TikTok. And those are the videos that people are favoriting and then people are following me, even though I'm not creating like I created that stuff in the summer and they're so I was like, okay, I think this is a sign that I'm supposed to be talking about this stuff more. But part of my challenge is because I am such a polymath and like there's so much to what I do. I'm like, what do I focus on? Like, what am I trying to do? So I'm really appreciate your insight and having that reflected because now I feel like I have a more clear focus on what I should be doing, and it's creating.
oh, I know, and that's why I I believe that you messaging me was definitely divinely guided. Where I don't know what video of mine you came across, but or if maybe I liked one of your human design videos and that's what made you reach out. But the fact that you did reach out, I'm grateful for that human design breakdown that you conducted on me. And after I watched it, I was like, I had to reflect, like, wow, that was the universe in itself working in a unique way because that was I felt everything here, and I don't feel everything here too often, you know. So when I finished that breakdown, I digested it, and I was like, wow, I had to like legit think like how grateful I was for it, but also like I have a better understanding of myself, and that's what I think I was most grateful for, and the fact that you just came out of nowhere and just said, hey, I want to, like, most people, for that amount of information, most people will charge. Like, that is worth charging for. So there definitely is a market for that. And the fact that you did that, you dedicated your time, like, I can't express how appreciative I am of that. Like, that is, thank you. And
You're so
I,
welcome. It
that's why
was
I know that people, like the people who do tune in to this, they will discover you, and you're going to create many YouTube videos and TikTok videos based off of human design and gene keys. Please definitely make gene keys for layman's terms. Like that, that is my challenge for you. Like, just make it make it make sense for the collective. And I think you'll be rewarded abundantly. This entire year is just your year to just grind this out.
Thank you. And again, like, just I really appreciate the reflection and the insight, and like it really, I love doing this stuff, right? So yes, it's a lot of work. Like, I probably, the reading itself was 90 minutes, but then I also spent about an hour and a half researching your chart before that, right? So it is, and like I'm drained after, like it's a lot of output, but like it's not drained in a bad way. Like, I love it. I get such internal satisfaction from, because it's my gift, right? Like, this is my dharma. Like, I am a spiritual teacher. My midheaven is in Pisces. Like, it's all through my chart that I'm here to consume information. Because like I read about the human design, I read the gene keys, and I just get it, right? Like, even astrology, I understand at a pretty intermediate to advanced level without a lot of study, right? So it's obviously indicative of the fact that this is what I'm here to do. So I love doing it. It's obvious what I'm here to do. And even just that final insight about making the gene keys relatable, that was a download that I got last summer, was that I'm supposed to be clearing my channel so that I can channel a new version of the gene keys that's more colloquial, because I'm very intellectual and like advanced as far as that goes, but I'm also kind of a hood rat. Like, I have a lot of like that kind of experience. So I bring relatable terms and language to concepts that are not accessible to a large percentage of the population. So I'm so appreciative of this opportunity. It was so nice to connect with you, and I'm just lit up. So now I'm gonna start creating content.
Yeah, you know what your task is. I know what your task is. I feel it. I just feel this is what people not are meant to do, but it's just like you just feel this is what you're good at. And no more, you don't need to hold yourself back from it. It's just put yourself out there. You're ready to start presenting this information. And the world is ready to receive it as you've already started noticing that energy. But I appreciate your time. Thank you for coming on this live interview explaining human design. We just touched the surface of it. I'm hoping to connect with you in the future once you're further along in your journey, and we can conduct a part two of this interview.
Of course, I'd be so excited to do that. I'm so thankful for the opportunity, and I can't say thank you enough. So thank you.
Well, before we leave, can you tell the collective where they can find you?
Yes. Okay. So TikTok is, I believe I have it as my name, like Jenn Garrett. And then also my brand is DIY Enlightenment. So that's kind of the idea, is like, I didn't have anybody telling me how to put this stuff together. I DIY'd it, right? We don't need a guru. You just need the codes to be able to understand yourself. So DIY Enlightenment, if you look that up on TikTok, that is also the name of my YouTube channel. There's not, the YouTube videos I have on there are a little outdated. And then I am also on Instagram under the same name, but I don't use Instagram as much anymore. So mostly TikTok, I would say, for now.
But you should, because this is where the year of abundance to start opening your channels up and DIY enlightenment. I love it. It's almost like do it yourself enlightenment. Literally, like you could do it yourself and you can learn. And that's what you did. You can only lead a path that you followed. And now you followed this path. Now you are meant to lead others along this path. So,
That's
Jenn,
it.
it was great talking to you. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. I believe you're in Canada. Is there an hour time difference where you're at?
No, I think we're both in Eastern time zone, right? Like it's 12:15 here. I'm in Ontario, Canada, like in
Oh,
the
okay.
southern part of Ontario. So
a good little fun fact: majority of the Canadian population lives below that parallel, like where you're at.
yeah.
Very
Yeah, it makes sense. Most of the northern part of Canada is like uninhabited. So
well. You enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for your time, and many abundance come your way this year.
thank you so much, Marco. Same to you.